Hello, Extraordinary Striders. Welcome back to another episode of Extraordinary Strides, a podcast where we celebrate ordinary runners doing truly extraordinary things. I'm your host, Coach Christine, and today we're going to dive into one of my favorite parts of any race day experience. I'm going to say this truly sets it apart from any specific kind of training run. It is the magic of spectators. And in the infamous words of Kathrine Switzer, if you're losing faith in human nature, go out and watch a marathon. But I'm here to tell you how true this is of any distance, whether it's a hometown 5K, the iconic World Marathon Majors, or the pixie-dusted excitement of our runDisney event. Race spectators bring the energy that fuels every runner's stride. And my friends, I couldn't speak of energy if I didn't bring on in with me the ultimate cheer captain who is going to join us today, Lynn Kinney. Lynn is a Mod Squad member and a veteran cheerleader for local races, including runDisney. So she's here to share her top tips for cheering at every type of race, from grabbing the perfect spectating spot to crafting signs that will bring smiles and motivation to every runner passing by. So let's grab those cowbells, folks, because we're going to sprinkle some sparkle on race day and make spectating as extraordinary as running. Let's get this started and welcome, Lynn.
Good morning. Oh, wait. Sorry.
She has her cowbell ready at the ready here to cheer us all on. And I will tell you, Lynn truly is an absolute pro when it comes to spectating and always figures out how to bring an extra smile on all of our faces if we are running the race. I've also had the privilege of spectating with her. So we're going to bring her on in. Lynn, you helped us so much during the runDisney race this past weekend. And of course, there's been OUC and I could name them all, but it's just, you definitely have a special flair for spectating. Is there something that you feel it draws you to cheering and spectating specifically?
For me, it's, if it's not on my race goals, it's just a way to stay involved, even if, say, you're on that dreaded I word and you're on you can't run right now. But it's such a great way to encourage other people. And then it's a lot of fun. So
I feel like it also allows you to have a little of the extra flair of costuming that you like to bring to the party.
A little bit. I have been accused of are you running the race? No, I'm spectating. So. But yeah, this one wasn't the best example of that. It was a little too chilly for the super themed cheering costumes, but I do my best.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about that as well. So I think one of the first things that comes to mind is that it can be really overwhelming for spectators, because while us runners have been studying the race course map probably for as long as possible, I think spectators, while they support us and want to cheer us on, really aren't usually as aware. Maybe it's our significant others or parents or kids. So how would you suggest that folks get kind of acclimated to getting started with spectating or cheering?
Well, I think some of it is, like you said, knowing the course. Most races actually have a spectator guide, so it tells you the best places to spectate. The only downside with that is at a larger race, everybody knows where those places are. So if you can find some insider information on some places that aren't quite as traveled, that are a little easier to get into, it's a little easier to see your runner. And I don't know, OUC, we did a good job with that. We went around to different places. runDisney, there's only really specific spots you can cheer, and they do tend to get a little packed.
Before we get into the actual tips and guides for folks, I do want to know right out of the gate, the first thing that comes to mind that people ask about with runDisney is, do you have to have a park ticket to spectate in Magic Kingdom or Animal Kingdom or Epcot?
So Magic Kingdom, you do not, because they go through the park before the park is open. So you can spectate on Main Street without a park ticket. However, the other parks, whether it's Animal Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, would be difficult because they're not in there very long. But in Animal Kingdom and in Epcot, you do have to have a park ticket.
Okay, good to know. So that might lend to why Magic Kingdom gets so busy, packed as well. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is that right out of the gate, what the spectator needs to do is sit down and get their planning going.
Correct.
Okay. So what they need to study the course map a little bit, maybe try to find that spectator guide if it's out.
Right.
Is that a good time for them to start downloading the tracking app also so they can get the, and then what are some, if you, in your personal experience, what would you say are make for a good spot to spectate that I guess could be used across the board? And then if you want to give your specifics to maybe a runDisney race.
Well, I think it really depends on your goal for the race with the spectating. If it's just general spectating and encouraging everybody, it's not as specific, but usually we're there to cheer our runners, people we know. And you're right, you set up the tracking. You don't have to track every specific runner because sometimes they do get bogged down. Like I think at runDisney, I was tracking about 12 people. So it gets a little bogged down that way. But like if people are running together, you just need one of the two. Like if there's groups of people, then you just get one in the group. It helps with, your battery and your being able to keep track of where they are. So that's one of the things I usually do. So I like that part.
So I think one of the things that I can think of as well that you do is that because you do spectate for here the local races and you have such a large friend group for a lot of people, you want to go out there and cheer them on. I feel like you make it a very big public announcement of where you're going to be.
Correct.
And so that people can look for you and be on the lookout. So I think that's really important is the coordinating with the runner. How do you stand out from the other throngs of spectators?
Well, for me, like this time I did it a little different. I actually posted the signs I was going to have and what I'm wearing. Just like we do the flat runner, I do the flat spectator. So people know what I'm going to be wearing. And again, this one wasn't as great because of the coldness and multiple layers. And it was, so I did have our Extraordinary League hat on. So
I know, I saw it. And your great sign definitely stood out. So basically doing some prep, then letting folks know exactly where you are so they can coordinate. If you're looking at spectating for just one person, it's likely a little easier to stay in communication with that one individual.
Correct.
But still, it is kind of important to plan on these pre-agreed spots because it is possible the tracking app may be a little bit delayed. It's possible that your cell phones aren't going to work as well, or the signals will be a little crossed. So having this pre-planned and coordinated as best as possible. I want to talk about essentials because you've already touched on the fact that it was very chilly. I'm not kidding you guys. We even had Northerners tell us that it was chilly. So it's not just us Florida cold. It was really actually cold. So for the wide range of running, we have to be prepared for all these different possible aspects of wearing things. What are your essentials for race spectating that we should keep in mind in terms of gear, clothing, or things to pack along for you?
Well, I usually bring a sling backpack so I can have all of my things and have my hands free. That's very important. But then you can still have your things with you that are essential. This time, obviously, I had hot hands, I had gloves, had layers. And then when I didn't need those layers, then I had the backpack. Also gave me a place to put my signs. So the ones I wasn't using, I could keep in my backpack. So because I used smaller signs this year, it worked much better.
And I feel like we also have to take into account that the spectators are out there as long as the runner is, which can be a course of specifically for these longer races like halves and fulls. You're out there for 4, 5, 6+ hours. How are you staying hydrated and fed during that time?
That's true. I actually do it like I'm doing a race. So like I had my overnight oats on my way driving over. I had my banana and my other snack. So you're right. You have to have snacks. You have to also look, because you're a spectator and you're not running, you do have access, like at Disney, for example, there's Joffrey's, but you have to know when they open. They aren't open at the beginning of the race, but they do open eventually. So you can grab that. I think at OUC, we stopped in at a Starbucks between one place and another.
We did, yeah.
So just knowing what's around where you can pick up some extra hydration or snacks, but kind of coming prepared with that. As far as water and the basic snacks, and then,
So I'm hearing preparation is literally key. Like a lot of this, to be a good spectator, most of it comes into kind of just like the race. I would say 90% of what we do for our training is actually what really will serve us on race day. Same with spectating. It's all this before work. So let's say you've had your overnight oats, you've driven in to spectate. What's next for you?
Well, then it depends on if you're spectating alone or with other people. Obviously, you meet up, you have a meetup spot. Just like, again, very similar to the running. So you have your meetup spot. RunDisney, it's frequently in front of the monorail because you're about to help on that thing and get over to Magic Kingdom. So, so you kind of have a meetup spot for getting over. If you're meeting up with people you don't know very well, you send pictures of each other. This is what I'm wearing. This is what I look like. So it's a little easier to find new people if you're meeting them for the first time to help spectate.
And the reason why we say that is because Lynn does help to she becomes the guide for significant others or spouses or family members that aren't maybe as familiar with runDisney. But I will say that if you're traveling with friends that are going to be running and they have family that are coming out and supporting, connect them as soon as you possibly can. There is something about having those numbers to support each other while you're spectating. And also you create a much bigger energy vibe when there's more than one person that's out there. So I love that you do that, Lynn. We cannot express our appreciation sufficiently for that. But so you arrive early, you make sure that you're visible, you get with all of the other crowd. I want to talk about something that I heard a little bit past after Boston, and then we heard a lot about runDisney as well, where spectators potentially interfered with the ability of some of the other runners to do what they needed to do on the course because they were so excited to see their runners. So they would run out into the course or whatever the case may be. And then I heard a lot at runDisney that there were folks that were really excited to see their runner and maybe holding their space of where they were cheering a little too possessively. So how do you get around navigating those, I guess, common faux pas?
Actually, I mean, we go to TTC, which is a very busy spot. I did not see that. What I saw is there were people guarding their spot, but they would say, hey, if your runner is coming, let us know. And they would move and let the person whose runner was coming right then up to the front of the railing and cheer their runner, and then they would leave. And so it's kind of, you work your way up, but everybody was very nice about, oh, your runner's coming here, come right up here. So that's what I saw.
Okay. So if what I'm hearing say, Lynn, I've also seen you in action, is that it's be vocal with the people that are cheering as well, in terms of expressing that you respect their space, you respect what they're out there to do, that you want to cheer whoever they're cheering for as well. I've actually seen you do that. Where you're like, hey, who are you cheering for? So we can cheer for them when they come up, and then let them know how excited you are to cheer for your folks. So again, it becomes part of the community versus trying to be territorial about only spectating for your course or your racer. Now, there are some individuals that really rely on their spectators to help provide them with hydration or maybe on-course fueling that they need, or extra layers, or to take some of their layers. How would you suggest to navigate those aspects of it?
Well, it's back to the research of knowing your course. The TTC, or the Transportation and Ticket Center, it's about at the halfway point, basically, of the marathon. So it is a place a lot of people do like to grab a few things. And everybody that did need to do that seemed to be able to do that. So again, it was just that communicating. If it's crowded, say, hey, I need to get my runner this stuff, and they're coming around the corner. And everybody was pretty cooperative with that. So I didn't see a problem there. You just have to know, but it is a good spot for that because of it being the halfway point.
So I love to hear that. Again, I feel that more often than not, it's just a little bit of common courtesy and communication, which goes a long way. So as long as you're being very respectful of your fellow spectators and your course members, it should all work out very well, and it should feel absolutely magical, both spectating and for your runners. So we are hearing how to be there, how to be mindful. Now, how do we make some noise?
Well, there's several ways. Obviously, you heard my little, the cowbells, the noisemakers, all of that. Those can actually be quite an arm workout if you haven't practiced holding, because you're holding your arm up, holding the signs up. You're kind of sometimes having to hold them up high to be able to have people see them around the crowd and whatnot. So, but as far as the noise piece, and I was telling somebody the other day, if you yell in your full voice, you will not make it for a marathon level of spectating. It tears up your voice. So one of the things that does help, and I don't know, I learned this a few years ago. If you scream in a higher register, then it's not as taxing on your voice. It's like your falsetto voice for those who are singers. Using that part of your voice isn't as harsh, and you can scream a lot longer without completely losing your voice.
And then for all of us like myself who have no musical abilities whatsoever and aren't sure what you're speaking of, would you care to demonstrate? And if so, I'm going to let everybody know that because she is going to be cheering you on quite literally, that you may want to reduce the noise on your AirPods or your earbuds.
Okay, so full voice yell would be like, "You've got this, go, go, go." It was like that. That's
what I do.
Right.
And that's what I lose my voice every single time.
Exactly. So falsetto would be like, kind of like that.
I didn't hear it.
You didn't hear me go, "What?"
No, it must register so high that I honestly can't hear it.
Oh, wow. That's funny.
Or at least not through here.
That's interesting.
Try it one more time.
It doesn't even come through. See, that's why it saves your voice.
That's wild. Oh my gosh. We're going to have to see if we can get that on social media and maybe connect it there. That's wild. Okay.
That is super funny.
A much higher register instead of the full voice will save you from having that throat ache, from losing your voice the whole next day. Love to hear that. It probably also travels over the voices of the other individuals, so it can be heard a little easier. Mm-hmm. What do you say to your runner? Do you say, "Keep going, you're looking strong"? Do you say, "Oh my goodness gracious, it looks like you just ran half a marathon, you look exhausted"? What do you say?
I actually, well, at runDisney races, I like commenting based on the theme. So if I see a Captain America go by, I'll say, "You can do this all day long."
Okay. So
that kind of thing. So we want to go, so I go thematically, or fly Tinkerbell fly or whatever.
Oh, I love that.
Kind of whatever. And then if it's a generic, just a regular race that's not that way, I'll do usually the, you've got this, you're looking strong. I think at OUC, I had a Roadrunner sign.
Yes, meep, meep.
And it had meep, meep. So when people would go by, they would go meep, meep. And so I meep, meeped everybody. So it just sometimes depends on the sign. Sometimes it depends on what the runners are dressed like.
So I love that everything you heard her say so far is very encouraging. It's very cheerful and supportive. It's also laced with a little bit of humor, so it puts a smile on the person's face. What I would caution you from saying is anything that actually sounds like you are trying to tell them how to run their race, specifically in those latter miles where maybe they're taking more strategic walk breaks, that telling them at that point they should run harder or that they need to get back to running may not feel quite as encouraging depending on the individual. So just be mindful of how you approach that. I love how everything you said, Lynn, was much more generalized encouragement. And I'm curious, how do you feel about when people tell you to run when you're using run walk strategy?
That one doesn't annoy me too much. It's the "you're almost there" one is the one that rubs. It's just like, I am not not almost there.
When is it okay for you to feel like you're almost there come into play?
If I can see the finish line,
okay, then you can say you're almost there.
You're almost there. The people at that last, now I don't mind at the last water stop, like at whatever mile 25, it's the last water stop, that's okay, but not.
Okay. So being very accurate with what you're actually specifically saying. So maybe letting people know this is the last time you're going to see a PhotoPass photographer in this section, or there's a PhotoPass photographer coming up. And again, for folks that aren't aware, PhotoPass photographers are the on-course race photo capturing magic individuals that we always appreciate. Or if it's a general course, if you know that there's a race photographer ahead, letting people know about that is appreciated. but not necessarily letting them think that the finish line is within their reach, even though they still have a 5K, 10K, or even a full other half to go.
Right.
How about one of the things that I think you do that's really incredible too is that you take some of the best photos and videos. Like to this day, I think I can think of several league members where the favorite photo was them seeing you, the smile they had on their face, and you being able to capture it. How do you do that? Like what's advice would you give to folks that are taking photos while they're cheering?
Well, one is that I did not follow this time is I need to get some tech gloves because it was really difficult with the gloves and my gloves are not tech gloves. So it's like I wasn't as good with the photos this time as I usually am. So be mindful of what level of glove that you need to be able to have the camera because like you said, the tracking isn't always really accurate and you don't want to just stand there with your phone out all the time. So you have to be able to react quickly and get that quick photo. Your good photo on this last race, though, it helped. I was actually standing right by a photo pass. So I think you saw the photo pass person before you saw me. So you were kind of photo pass ready. So that helped.
I don't think I saw anything this particular course. I feel like I was just like so excited. It was quite magical. I loved the marathon course for runDisney. I know a lot of people didn't love the new course, but I did. So I was pretty happy, go lucky. Okay. What about if you're not going to move around? If you've decided I'm going to make this my little section, my little home, I'm here to cheer everyone that comes through from start to finish. What kind of encouragement would you say that people should give at that point? Should they hand out treats? And what would you do as a spectator to stay comfortable in that one spot?
Well, I think a couple of things. One is you need to know if you can hand out treats because that obviously could be problematic. The other thing I would say is, again, if you're going to stay in one spot, kind of like what I talked about before, if somebody's runner is coming up, be like, okay, this is our spot, but yeah, go ahead. Your runner is coming right now. And you just be polite. I would also say, I know like the Girls on the Run group, they have a spot that's not very populated. It's not a popular spot. So they can kind of have it to themselves. It's not super crowded right there. So if you want to just stay put, I would pick a place that's a little less crowded because you're not having to get in and out. You can I've seen people with coolers, that sign of thing because they're not moving around. So they don't have to have it all in a backpack.
So this goes back to doing that prep in terms of logistically finding out what the race rules may be. There are quite a few. Again, runDisney would look very different than if you were spectating a hometown race. I know hometown races, you might be able to get away with setting up some treats or giving away some candy. Probably not as appreciated on runDisney property. So being very mindful of what the actual course rules may be. There also may be things that you may think would be absolutely okay for you to bring to cheer that would be against rules. So checking those out and then being very respectful if security does need to enforce it, of course. Okay, we've made it through this course. I feel like you've given all of the down low as to what people should have. They need to stay hydrated. They, of course, should stay high energy. But now, how do we find our runner after they're finished with the race? And what are some ideas of how to kind of celebrate their big finish?
Well, and that one is very different depending on the race. At runDisney, I do not prioritize being at the finish line because your runner is probably not going to see you at the finish. There's just so many people there, which is fine if that's, that's fine, whatever people want to do. And some people will just sit up in the stands and be relaxed and wait and cheer their person. And that's great. That is one way to stay put as well. And you can just cheer everybody as they come across. But when, again, part of the logistics is looking at the finish area. What is that? Let's pick, and like at runDisney, you don't want to say, oh, let's meet in the reunion area. The reunion area is very large. I would think that's true of like majors and things, any larger race. The finish area is huge. So you have to be specific of, we're going to be by this food truck that's this color in the reunion area. So that way everybody knows where to meet up.
Which is what we do. We have our specific location that we tend to be very near, and hopefully runDisney doesn't move it around on us. But yes, absolutely. Having an idea of where you're going to meet up afterward, I think is pivotal. Again, you cannot rely just on cell phone. Your cell phone signal may not be working. It may not be as strong. Maybe your cell phone's been drained. So maybe even having a place and a time. And if by that time is not met, you have a secondary plan. Because I'm thinking of one of the majors, I had to go into plan B for meeting up with my crew. So again, this is where it's very tailored. If you're spectating for one person, you may want to bring them things that are their creature comforts for after the race. If you're spectating for multiple people, just being there to cheer them on and support them and congratulate them is sufficient.
Right. And if you happen to have somebody who's just finished a perfect season, then you help hold their arms up so they can get their pictures.
That was an awesome experience still. It's still like it blazed in my mind. Okay, so golden rules for spectators, respect all runners. So if you're out there and you're cheering for one specific runner, until your runner arrives, go ahead and spread the cheer and encouragement for everyone around. I would say that Lynn is really great about this, and she knows to express to others that she's helping with, would stay flexible. She has a good plan, but she still knows that she may have to go into a little bit of a plan A and a half, or like A.2, just in case. And then have fun, which I think is what makes you stand out as one of the best cheer spectators, is that you really look like you're actually enjoying yourself out there while you're cheering and spectating, from your signs to the energy you bring. So I cannot thank you enough. Anything else that you would suggest for folks that maybe are dipping their toe into spectating?
Well, one thing, as you know, I'm a goal setter type of person, right? So even when I'm spectating, I have a goal. So usually it's the same goal, so that makes it easier. But my goal is always to have random strangers like my sign enough to want to take a selfie or a picture of it. So this race, I think I had 3 or 4. So
was it a PR, or have you a PR?
I don't have a PR. It's just like, as long as people, so I'm always excited. And, you know, a lot of people liked my sign, my Yeti sign.
Yeah.
And then there were the meet people at OUC.
Yes, so I remember. Yeah.
So that's the spectating thing that brings me joy, is I have come up with something clever and different that they don't see, you know, because you see the same running signs all the time. And it's like, okay, I'm doing something different. So
that's fun. Okay. Now I know. I knew you were competitive, but I didn't even realize that was, I feel like you're on a whole other level, Lynn. I love it. I'm here for it. Well, with that said, friends, we want to, again, express our thank you to Lynn. If you guys have more questions, jump into the community. Lynn's there to help hand out any advice that she may have. Specifically, she is a pro with runDisney. If you have some folks that have some questions about spectating, knowing again that runDisney is doing a fabulous job of kind of keeping us guessing a little bit. Weekend to weekend, there are some changes. So that's why staying flexible is so very key, but she's here to hand out any of her advice. If today's episode has inspired you to be the ultimate race day cheerleader, I do have a downloadable, printable race day checklist and graphics that you can create your own motivational signs. Again, I cannot tell you that they're going to have as cool of slogans or sayings as Lynn's signs would have, but at least it'll give you some of the materials that you can use to create your own sign, because every runner deserves the extra sparkle of encouragement. So to grab yours, just sign up with the link in episode notes. You'll be all set to cheer like a pro. So I want to thank you, Lynn, and thank you all for tuning into Extraordinary Strides. Don't forget to subscribe and share the episode with your favorite race buddies.